Big Red Racing is a racing game developed by Big Red Software and published somewhere in 1995-1996 by Domerc Software. This video is not exactly a pure review or a guide or an in-depth analysis. It's something in between, or just me talking about one of the most favorite games from my childhood. I am Resentful Nihilist, and welcome to my channel.
Just give me a break.
'90s was a unique time in gaming history, as 3D was still fairly new and many genres that are well established today weren't that clearly defined back then, so many titles had to experiment. The game greets you with a compilation of terrible choices that serves as the game's main menu. Jumping letters and humorous one-liners on every click didn't feel too weird to a 10-year-old in the 90s, but it definitely causes heavy head-scratching now. It stands out in the crowd. It has a standard set of choices when it comes to gameplay. There's a single race, there's championship mode, and there's multiplayer. If you have tried it fairly recently and you just want to know how to get it running more smoothly, the timestamp of the solution is the description. Let's talk about the main course, which is the racing itself. You can race in a car, in a boat, in a space vehicle, or in a helicopter. The physics are heavily arcadey, there is zero realism, zero authenticity, and it kinda resembles toy bump in cars more than anything else. The game allows you to choose from 2 vehicles assigned to every level, and there are 16 vehicles in total. Everyone handles differently, has different strengths, and except the helicopters, every vehicle has a limited nitro supply, which might be charge-based or available to be used continuously while the button is held. In case you get lost or stuck, you can utilize a reset button at any time without limitations to be brought back on track nearby. There's also damage system, which adds another layer to the game, as you'd really want to avoid exploding when the meter reaches 100%. It's pretty fun, and after you get the hang of it, you feel fairly in control of what's happening on the screen. The game rewards precision, knowledge. You can save up nitro for certain moments, calculate bumping against the walls, as well as utilize one of many shortcuts on the maps. Every map has a preset number of laps you have to race, and unfortunately there are no settings available except being able to choose one of 2 vehicles mentioned earlier. Also, the game is missing something I would never expect a racing game not to include: any kind of timer. It's insane that you not only have no high scores, but you can't even track your lap or track time during the race. Speaking of maps, there are 24 completely unique tracks, and the environments are very varied. The races take place all over the Earth, from Japan through Egypt and Australia to Arctic, as well as on the Moon, Venus and Mars. You can drive on dirt, on sand, in the cities, through the rivers, and most tracks have a ton of ramps to jump from, are full of hills to fall from. No 2 tracks feel the same, their lengths differ heavily, but one really cool thing they have in common is a complete lack of borders or limitations. I love it. In any moment you can just drive off the road and explore, which was, to say very lightly, incredibly uncommon in 1995 when the game released. Your goal is to drive through checkpoints placed around the track, but the way you get from one to another is completely up to you. The game is full of Easter eggs and hidden places, which I will talk about later, Just the ability to see all those background elements from up close to drive around them is a really neat feature. One thing that might not be a large issue, because none of the reviews that I've read mention this as a problem, but I've noticed it and couldn't unsee it afterwards. Opponent AI, or rather the lack of it. You drive your car next to 5 cars controlled by the computer. You don't really keep colliding with them too often because every contact means heavily bouncing off them, but that's when I noticed they drive exactly the same way every time. They are nothing more than moving obstacles which you can bump from, but cannot affect their driving line or stop them in any way. Every track has a pre-recorded movement of every car that plays alongside you racing. The only thing that changes is rubber banding, which affects the speed of the playback. If you are far behind, they move very slowly. If you are slightly ahead, they move a bit faster than you. So you have to utilize shortcuts and nitro in a smart way to leave them far behind. After which, their difficulty is brought down into manageable levels. But again, I noticed it after spending probably hundreds of hours in the game and have never felt that it's a deal breaker. Just a fun fact. For the sound effects, apart from the menu ones, well, they are there and that's it. Engine sounds, the wheels, skid sounds, collisions and not much more. They are not trying to be realistic, they are short and unintrusive, I guess. Music is original soundtrack composed for the game and it's pretty pleasant, although it doesn't exactly match the crazy chaotic vibes of the game itself. During the races you occasionally hear comments from the characters, which add even more humor to the game. Some of the voice actors you might have heard already. For example, Lani Minella from dozens of games including Skyrim, or John St. John, known for Duke. There are no unlockables, so the entirety of the game's content is available from the get-go in both single and multi, which is indeed pretty handy for everyone who just wants to pick up the game and play a few races. There is some customization though, and more of it than I'd expect from such an early 3D DOS game. You can choose one of the 6 available characters, choose the color of the uniform and the car, as well as choose one of many emblems which will be visible on your vehicle. Pretty neat. The game features multiplayer mode, which allows you to play over the local network, or in split screen. I've mainly played split screen in the past, and it's always more fun to race or explore with someone else. It works well, and it's great fun, to be honest. Okay, as we've gone through the reviewy part of the video with general information on the game, let me talk about details. Performance of the game on the newer systems is pretty problematic. The game was designed with CPUs like 386DX2 in mind, which allowed it to run around 30 FPS, I believe. But on modern PCs, there is a major bug with game's third-person camera. The camera seems to be updated in different intervals than the rest of the game. The effect is high frame rates cause heavy camera shaking, because camera's roll rotation is only getting corrected once every 2 frames or something around this. So you have 3 options. First, get used to shaking camera. Second, configure DOSBox or whatever you are using to run the game limited to about 30 FPS. Or third option, configure the game to run at 30 FPS and also use lossless scaling software, which can smooth out your framerate to achieve 60 FPS, which I would personally recommend. So, regarding that last point, you've gotta choose emulation specs to make the game run around 30 FPS. From my experience, choosing Pentium 2 gives the best results for the game's high-resolution mode. And when you've got the game running around this frame rate, you launch, lossless scaling, enable frame generation, and while still far from perfect, it's definitely more bearable, even if you get artifacts from time to time. I am running the game using RetroArch, which gives you access to Dosbox-Pure, as well as gives you a set of cool options, including binding key presses to a gamepad or applying shaders, which might change the game's look drastically. Just look at the cel-shaded visuals or the CRT filter. What's not to love? There are at least 8 versions of the game that I could find, including 4 demos. And interesting trivia is that the earliest build that I found, a demo compiled on November 1st, 1995, is the only edition where the camera works well with high frame rates. But this demo, for example, has no countdown and uses completely different physics settings where vehicles are incredibly light. Other versions are mostly the same with minor differences. One thing more worth mentioning is that the game had a promo edition where the developers collaborated with Epson, and the game has been given as a bonus when buying their hardware. This edition of the game had in-game humorous banners and signs, all replaced with obnoxious Epson ads. It's been long ago, but I find it crazy that such practices were already being done 30 years ago. Next point, Easter eggs. The game is full of them, and together with shortcuts, finding cool stuff is one of the reasons why exploration in the game is awesome. The first map, England. By driving off the road and through the lake, you can find a classic English phone booth on an island in its center. In Mexico, there's nothing special apart from the background decoration, like a lake, and 2 really large, weirdly shaped hills. But there is nothing on top of them if you are curious. In Ireland, you might have noticed a group of sheep behind some fences. If you check the group on the right, they are solid and you bounce off them. But the ones on the left are, well, interactable. You can change their height by driving over them. Carsplat, I guess. The curious road on the right is fake, ends suddenly just behind the view, and you can't drive under the bridge that you see there. Japan. Map included in most of the demo versions has this thing that made me want to check all of the maps for other secrets. By driving off the track south and turning right when you see the water, you will eventually find a huge mountain with golden dog shape on it. It may be nothing, but makes you wonder anyways. In Russia, by driving into the ocean, you might eventually see a huge pillar of water that you can get onto by driving straight into it. Italy is another level where you can splat a ship, but it also has some silly signs if you try to follow the roads, which aren't a part of the track. It also has a fake city, where some of the buildings don't even have their backsides and are overall pretty glitchy. There's also a crashed bus on the side of the road. Spain is an interesting level because it's the only one that shares most of its geometry with the previous one, Italy. Although the visuals are different and the direction you drive on the track is backwards. France is a level that I really wanted to have something special. There are multiple secondary paths, which make it seem like it was either supposed to be much larger, much different, or just wasn't finished. The extra roads are pretty useless. They are very suboptimal or lead nowhere because they are blocked off with some banners. As for 2 of the water tracks, India and China, if you choose the airboat, you can fairly easily travel through grassy surfaces, so you're not limited to rivers only. There are some roads that you can follow and if you drive far enough, you'll find spiky hills. If you try driving onto them, the physics will glitch out and the boat will keep jumping around until you reset the vehicle. USA Water Track, which was also featured in the demo, has the same rule as the previous two, but it also features a mountainous area. In that part, if you choose the inflatable boat and position it towards the wall, you should be able to drive atop of them by utilizing nitro. Don't ask me how I discovered it. It was decades ago. But I did play the demo religiously for a very long time. On the moon, you can find a mysterious black obelisk and some bunker entrances here and there. On Venus, which was included in one of the demos, there's an endless lava lake with a few lava spikes somewhere in the middle, which I believe is only present in the demo version because the map has some differences. There are also crowds in the passageways above the starting position. In Egypt, you can drive around the 3 pyramids you see off the track and follow the river, but nothing special apart from that. I spent quite some time on the remaining maps as well, but couldn't find anything I'd consider an Easter egg. Some 90-degree cliffs or just huge empty spaces. Modding. The game isn't very friendly in the context of user-generated content, but there are game files and commands which can give access to some of the extra stuff. By moving around files and adding the lev with a level name when running the game via the command line, you can access some of the testing levels. CT3 and Test 1 to be precise. They are just brush tests with random ramps splattered around. A more interesting case is car command, which lets you override each track's predefined car selection. You can drive jeeps in the snow or fly helicopters in Egypt. So, that's it. I guess I ran out of stuff to talk about. The game was and still is something unique, regardless of its simplicity and missing quality of life features that everyone kind of expects. Thank you.